Welcome to this special edition of Legislative Watch, brought to you through the generosity of my fellow Idahoans, which is usually viewed in this time slot. I'm your host, Elizabeth Allan Hodge, and I have two special guests today who will be talking about what's going on in the legislature, different issues that they're dealing with, and legislation that's being proposed. To my right are both representatives from District 21. We have Senator Russ Fulcher and Representative Cliff Bayer, who are both from District 21, which is southwest Ada County. Is that correct, gentlemen?
That's correct.
Okay, and this week we did a special workshop that the public was invited to where we talked about the proper role of government, and the whole idea of Legislative Watch is to open the lines of communication between the legislators and their constituents. So today we're going to be talking about different things that you want your constituents and other Idahoans to know what's going on in the legislature so that they can be abreast of things. So it was the kickoff 2 weeks ago, and I'm told that you have so much on your plate that it feels in many ways like the last days of the session.
I think we're logging mileage instead of chronological days right now. It feels like we're in the second month already,
Yeah.
So that's true.
Okay, so I know that there's two things that are happening this year already early on in the session that are very unusual, and that's the fact that we've got some joint meetings between the House and Senate other than JFAC, which is always joint, but tell us about that.
Well, the first thing that has come before the legislature, at least in a major way, is the potential the education reform proposal by the superintendent. And they are very truly significant. The superintendent of public schools, Tom Luna, has proposed some major reform changes that have to do with teacher merit pay, how tenure is handled, and numerous changes to how the public school system, K through 12, is managed. So that always brings a lot of emotion, brings a lot of stakeholders to the table, and so we literally hit the ground running on that issue.
You know, one of the things that we talked about in the workshop is when people come and they will have an opportunity to actually, this is live, so tomorrow there's going to be public hearing where people will come and testify, and how it's kind of, if you're not used to the process, it can be a little intimidating, even though it's designed to make it more orderly and to take the emotion, because you were talking about how some of these things are pretty emotionally charged. Would you take just a minute to talk to people about how they address the chair and address you, because I think it's important so that they can feel comfortable. And also, we think that it's important for you to realize that those citizens who voted for people in public office are really the employers, and it's an opportunity for them to talk to the employees about what's going on. It's an opportunity for the employees to say, this is how we're doing our job, we'd like your input. And so if you just take a minute to talk about the process and then the time so that people will have an opportunity to be involved.
Oh, sure, I'd be happy to. You're right, it is a more formal professional process, and that is to maintain decorum and objectivity and to keep things from becoming personal. And with that, though, it is a citizens legislature, it is a service role, and so anybody should and are encouraged to participate in the process. And you do address the chair. You sign in, you do address the chair and the committee, and just as you would any germane committee, education committee, health and welfare. What's unique this session, an unprecedented opportunity tomorrow for the public at large to address the Joint Finance and Appropriation Committee, JFAC, because in large part due to the budget scenario, tomorrow on education and a week from tomorrow on health and welfare issues. And you can also submit written testimony. There are some time limits because they're going to be running from 8 to 11, and I'm going to imagine they're going to run out of time. But you can submit written testimony, and this is all above and beyond calls and email correspondence, but being able to address the committee directly on those big issues which take up the lion's share of the budget, it's a great opportunity.
Well, and we should state that the legislators followed the same protocol that going through the chair, and it is meant so that people can keep things orderly and have a good dialogue.
That's right. And Elizabeth, one other point just to point out. As Representative Baird talked about, this is kind of unprecedented. The reason is that this year, unlike any other year that I've been involved with, the public policy changes or the potential public policy changes of the reform or the proposed reform will to a large extent dictate what the appropriations are. So instead of the Finance Committee simply getting together and doing the math and slicing up the budget pie, this year, because the policy changes are so significant, those changes can, in effect, drive what the budget is.
Now, talk a little bit more about the policy changes and go ahead.
Okay. Well, first of all, the way the superintendent has lined it out, and the premise for all this is it's pretty simple. There are three options before the legislature in how we handle the funding for public schools. Number one, we can either cut or reduce the spending level to the existing system. The second option is to raise taxes in order to feed the existing system. And quite frankly, after the month of November and the elections that we all just went through, I think that that's a very remote chance. So, but that is one of the options. The third option is to reform the system or restructure the system, do things differently. So what the superintendent has done is he has provided that third option. And he's got his, what he calls his three pillars that are formulating the basis for that. And the first one is what he calls creating the 21st century classroom. Basically, that's using technology in order to reduce costs and the amount of strain on teachers and workload there. Laptops to students, online courses, virtual learning, and so on. The other one, the second pillar, is to protect and reward Idaho's best teachers and principals. So it's like a bonus structure program, and there's merit pay that's involved with that, and that merit pay is tied to student achievement. But the idea is try to identify and reward those that are performing the best. And then lastly, it's transparent accountability. And that accountability means that all the schools publish their checkbook, just like other government agencies do, line item by line item, where all the expenditures go. All the meetings are open meetings, including the union negotiations. So there's a number of steps in there for transparency for the system.
And will Superintendent Luna be there, or?
He has been there
This week.
all week in front of the legislature. Tomorrow, I know this is a live program, but tomorrow on the 21st will be that opportunity where the Finance Committee opens up for public testimony. People can come in and they can share their views.